we have 4 states, 3 states of creation, and then a 4th state, which is consciousness. So this 4th state of consciousness is the backdrop of all things. Hopefully I've already established that, right? This is all consciousness. So consciousness is the backdrop of all things. It's the substratum, as they say. But then it's modified, or apparently modified. And so then it undergoes these 3 phases that result in the appearance of creation, or the appearance of manifest reality. And I'm pointing this out again because it can be useful. I'm not expecting that you're going to have to, you don't have to understand this, but in the long run, it will be helpful to you to understand it, which is why I'm giving you the information. So, and like I said, this is going to sound so like stupid that it will seem as though it couldn't be useful, but it can be useful. So just hear it. And there are different ways that this can be understood. This is not the only way to understand it. Each of the different ways of understanding it has a different value, but I'm presenting it in this way because this has a value. It's one of the simplest ways to understand it. So the 3 states of manifest reality are creation, sustenance, destruction. Now, I said it would seem stupid, but it's useful to understand because we want us to understand that what we're normally perceiving as so-called outer phenomena is the sustenance. That's what we're usually focused on. That's what we usually want or think we want. We want the sustenance. We want the stuff. We want the money, right? So the money is the sustenance phase. But how does it, we need to know how that appears. We need to know how it disappears. We need to know the phases by which it comes into and into existence and winks out of existence. So those phases are creation, sustenance, and destruction. So this is very helpful to know because we can understand it like, again, there's this 4th state, which is consciousness, which is the backdrop of everything. So everything is emerging from that. So where does it, so this creation phase, where is that happening? It's happening, and this is just to be able to speak about it, but it's happening, we could say, in this as a transition from unmanifest to manifest, right? There has to be this transition from formless to form. So we have, there's formless consciousness, there's no money, there's pure abundance, infinite abundance, but there's no money. And you're saying, I want the money, I want the money, I want the money. Okay, so then we have to know, where does the money come from? Well, the money emerges from pure consciousness. And in order to emerge, it has to go through this phase of creation, which is really just to say the idea. We have to allow for the idea. And then it has its sustenance, which is where we're actually experiencing it, where we're perceiving it. And then it has its destruction. And the destruction, in some senses, is the reverse of the creation phase. It's also a transition between the manifest into the formless of pure consciousness. Because all things created also have to be destructible. They have to be able to transition back into their formlessness. So these are, and like I said, it seems too stupid to be useful, but it's useful. And the reason I'm pointing it out is that fundamentally, this is what we want to work with. We want to be able to know that all of creation emerges from this infinite being consciousness that I am. This is so important with money. It's important with everything, okay? But I'm talking about money here. So important with money, because think about, how are most people pursuing money? How are they thinking about money? They think about money as something outside that they have to get, right? This is a huge mistake. So guaranteed, as long as you keep thinking about money as something outside of you that you need to get, you're going to, one of 2 possibilities. One, you'll never get the money. That's going to happen to most people. Second possibility is that you'll get the money, but it won't be enough. And you can just see that's what happens to most people. Most people don't get the money. And then for those few who get the money, it's not enough. Why? Because they're still perceiving that they are lacking, right? They're not understanding what the true abundance is. That's why I'm setting as the foundation to know the true abundance that you are, because only then can you make money joyfully. Otherwise, you're just trying to acquire money from the outside and you're making yourself miserable. Even if you're not miserable in the acquisition, you're miserable because it's not enough, because it's not enough. It's never enough until you know the truth of who you are as abundance. Then you can make money joyfully. Then you have enough, you are enough, you manifest enough, and there's no anxiety about it. So having this understanding is important to know, where does the money come from? The money is manifest from pure consciousness through this phase of creation into the sustenance. Now, eventually it's destroyed back into its source and substance, true substance, which is consciousness, which is formless. But of course, here, if you want to have more money, then you kind of want to hack reality, I guess, as it were. You want to have this understanding because you're basically wanting more sustenance. You're wanting to maintain energy in the sustenance, in the state of form, in a particular form, money, and not have it destroyed. So this is important to understand. Because here's another thing is sometimes people are really, really good at making money. They can create money. They can't hold on to it, which is apparently, I'm not going to have a lot of time to talk about techniques today, but this is one of the techniques I'm going to talk about today. It's really, really important is how do you then keep the money? Because it's not enough just to create it. As anybody who's created money and lost the money, easy come, easy go, knows, you can make millions and millions of dollars, but if it all, goes right out, if you can't hold on to it, it doesn't do you any good. In fact, it can cause you a lot of problems. If you're paying taxes on millions of dollars, but then you can't hold on to the millions of dollars, then you're not doing well at all, right? Because a lot of times people think, oh, if I could just make a lot of money, it's not that easy. Be careful. That's why you want to have the right understanding before you get yourself into trouble, because if you make a bunch of money, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. So we want to understand where the money comes from. So the money comes from pure consciousness. It's not from the outside. If you think it's coming from the outside, you're going to get yourself in so much trouble. Don't do that. That's one of the biggest obstacles. People have to get over that. They have to really recognize the truth that the money comes from inside. Everything comes from the inside, so the inside is the cause, the outside is the effect. Your power is to stay with the cause. If you're putting your attention on the effect, you're going to continue to be disappointed, because it's a terrible game to play. I wish, and I'm not going to try to explain it skillfully here, but because I don't want to take up a lot of the precious time on that, but just to try to imagine that, or wrap your head around that, so that you can see how important it is to keep your attention where you have the power, where you have the leverage, because if you don't, you're really putting yourself into a bad position. So that's why understanding the real source is so crucial for success. You have to know, where does the money come from? The money comes from where all things come from, which is from within, from consciousness. So you have to keep noticing anytime that you're thinking that you have to get the money from outside. It sets everything into motion in the wrong way. It will make you miserable. It will create lots of difficulty in your life. You'll be very stressed and unhappy with the outcome if you keep doing that. So and it's a big shift. So for most of us, it takes a lot of persistence. You have to just keep training yourself. And it's all an awareness game. You have to notice what you're thinking, what you're believing, what you're doing, and catch yourself in the act and say, oh, look, there I am again, believing that I have to get money from the outside, believing that I'm lacking, believing that I don't have enough. And you have to, again, bring yourself back to the direct experience. So I recommend every day, give yourself at least once every day that direct experience of noticing that you are that infinite abundance. It's a really important thing to give yourself, because if you don't have that every day, then what's your reference point? Your reference point is something false, something delusional, something weak, something without the power and leverage. So what are you going to be doing? Well, you're going to be acting from weakness, which means you're going to get bad results, which means you're going to validate all your bad, limited, negative beliefs. So it's a vicious cycle. So at least once a day, preferably more, but at least once a day, give yourself that direct recognition, the direct experience of noticing, I am infinite being, which is infinite abundance. I am that. It's not